Hey everybody, welcome to Beyond the Bench. Today I have a fantastic guest for you all, Jan Sulaiman, VP of Global IoT Solutions at Once.
I think when I started, we were 12, 15 people, and now we're at, over 25,000 customers, over 30 million connected devices. You have your first 10 devices, you maybe have your first couple hundred devices. We start to scale to a few thousand devices. I can still manage it, but that moment when they start going from a few thousand to tens of thousand devices per year, that's where the problems start. We track based on which cell towers they are, so we were able, with the local authorities, and they directly managed to find essentially that car, Amber Alert related to this particular car. Until not everyone knows what Once is, and until not everyone knows how simple connectivity can be, we're not even going to stop, right? So
when do they bring in Jan to drop the hammer?
It's a good question.
Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Bench, where we discuss taking hardware through production and the stories along the way. My name is Bill Brock, CEO of Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products. Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Beyond the Bench, Hardware Stories That Matter. Today I have a fantastic guest for you all, Jan Sulaiman, VP of Global IoT Solutions at Once. Jan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks Bill for having me today. Awesome, excited.
Yeah, so we met probably 6-8 months ago, right after CES through a mutual friend, and I've had a bunch of really interesting conversations. And Once is a global company, no doubt. And so I'd love to hear a little bit before we get into anything personal, but just what is Once? What do they do? Who do you serve? Where do you work?
Yeah, totally. So at Once, we are essentially a global connectivity and software company. What makes us unique is that we focus on IoT industry exclusively, and we really founded the company in end of 2017. We then kind of went live in 2018 selling our product, and we kind of got known in the industry for being a price disruptor initially, right? Our IoT proposition is really like a global connectivity service, which you can essentially buy as a so-called Once lifetime flat rate. For $10 you get 10 years of access to the networks in our coverage, which is meanwhile 173 in more countries, 500 megabyte of data, and basically like an all-inclusive package. And what customers really love us for is it's focused on easy to buy, easy to use, and then also easy to maintain, right? And this is really what our key criteria are whenever we build something and a new capability of our platform. That's what we focus on, really making IoT connectivity as simple as it can be for anyone who wants to build some kind of connected product. Meanwhile, we are 7 years into this business. We're serving over 25,000 B2B customers worldwide. We have over 30 million connected devices running on our platform, which means we see millions of different devices every single day popping up using our network. That is for us really one of the key achievements. I think back in 2018, we finished the year off with like 650 customers. That was our first year. And now we are at over 25,000 customers as of December last year. So it really is a growth story, global connectivity, and we really just saw how customers love the simplicity about it.
That's still an amazing first year. So I mean, you guys clearly tapped into a pretty impressive unmet need, and you joined as a product manager.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was one of the back then we all kind of started somewhere, right? I mean, we were a small company. I think when I started, we were probably like 12, 15 people across all the company. I mean, we kind of sit together, built the proposition, got it launching. Our CEO and key investor back then, he only gave us essentially 8 months to turn this into reality, this idea which he had, right? We even managed then to really take it live and take our web shop live after 8 months of the company really working together. So yeah, I focused really on product, building that up, and I mean essentially today I'm still kind of doing the same thing. We just grew. I'm still looking after the product. Now I'm also looking after customers, but in the end it's all about the product, right? How do we develop that further? What are the features we can give to customers, and that's still one of my main focuses every single day.
And what were those early customers like? I mean, taking a bet on a new telco or new SIM provider.
I mean, in the beginning, we really saw. I mean, we already saw a nice mix of different verticals, to be honest, which was probably the big part that kept us, going all these years, because we kind of realized that, initially we said, okay, this is obviously focusing with our $10, 10 years and the 500 megabytes. We focus on, mass scale IoT, which is more of the
Sure.
low bandwidth applications. So initially we were obviously thinking about, okay, smart meter, utility industry and stuff. But we pretty quickly realized, okay, there's then also the tracking business, there's farming business, smart city, there's all kinds of industrial monitoring applications. And even within the first few months, we already saw that it's really across all kinds of verticals. What most of these customers had in common, they basically had the need for a global, and global sometimes is hard to define, but I would say of an international connectivity requirement. Because what
Mhm.
we noticed today is that, essentially over 70% of our customers, and that was really from day one, they are basically deploying in upwards of 7, 8, 9 countries, right? So that was really the key driver where we saw customers coming to once, because that's something you're not getting from the traditional operators. Most of the traditional operators, they have a really good offering in their own countries. If you have larger mobile network operators which operate multiple countries in different, multiple networks in different countries, then obviously they can also serve in their own footprint. But most start to struggle whenever they need to go to areas where they don't have their own network. And this is what we saw as the biggest pull through, that companies just said, hey, great, here I can essentially talk to one company, I can buy one product, and all these areas where I need to deploy, they just simply worked. And one of our, let's say, key customers, or became one of our biggest customers in the first years, was, for instance, a company in the elevator management.
Cool.
So it was a relatively large company in that space, right? They do elevators all across the world. And, the main reason they turned to us, which we were probably not the typical enterprise customer back then because we were small, we just started, but they basically said, hey, for you, managing all these countries, that's the part that makes a difference, because right now I need to buy from multiple different operators. I have different contracts. I need to manage all of that. That overhead was just so much work that they said, hey, we don't really care about you being smaller and just getting started. You are the right fit because we run a global business. And that
Yeah.
was really the common which we saw across all these customers.
What were the technical hurdles you had to cross to make that happen? I mean, weren't people doing this already?
I would say there is probably two big challenges. So one is you, of course, need to find a way to really access as many networks as you can across the world. We got, a good relationship with one of our initial investors, which was the Deutsche Telekom, which Deutsche Telekom gave us access to their kind of footprints. And that was helped us to really scale pretty quickly from a network access perspective, right?
Yeah.
The second part is you obviously need to manage all of that at an attractive cost, because the moment you would, deploy across different networks, the moment you have certain legacy applications running, your cost per unit goes up significantly. And what we have done there is, this is where really we as a technology company came in. We kind of redesigned how you're operating such a core network, which is essentially the technology behind the connectivity, and run that on a public cloud platform, how to scale that efficiently and really use these economies of scale of modern cloud platform. And this is what we, from a technology perspective, reinvented. And that helped us to really bring down the price to an attractive level that customers basically said, okay, now also the global connectivity becomes affordable, right? And that these two things together, being able to get this global network access through our investor Deutsche Telekom, as well as redesigning how the platform itself works and how we have built it, these two things in combination made the success of Once in the end.
Very cool. You have 20,000 plus customers, millions of devices under management. You're also on the customer solutions team, so you're frontline. How do you prioritize? When do they bring in Jan to drop the hammer and make sure the deal gets done?
It's a good question. So I mean, obviously it's around. I mean, I'm surrounded with probably one of most of the best people we have in the industry. We have such a strong team. Everyone is somehow an expert in their field. And what I realized early on is really like, okay, how to separate also the skill sets. We have a little bit of hardware problems sometimes. We have cloud topics. We have analytics topics, right? You have things where customers struggle with integration, right? So we kind of build up a team all around that. So in the end, when do they call me or get me involved is whenever there's a problem, right? And problems usually means, when it's about scaling it, when it's about, really starting these customers to go from that initial POC to basically something large. That's when, I also come in together then with my team usually, and we help these customers figure out that step, because that's especially, these challenges, which I'm sure you guys see as well. You build your POC, right? You have your first 10 devices, you maybe have your first couple hundred devices, right? This is all still fun and nice. We start to scale to a few thousand devices. Also still something where people realize, okay, I can still manage it, I can get by, but it's still not a significant overhead. Then they start going into the tens of thousands of devices per
Yeah.
year. That's where the problems start, right? And I'm not even talking about the ones which are doing, a million upwards a year, right? Because these customers, of course, also exist. But that moment when they start going from a few thousand to tens of thousand devices per year, that's when really, okay, now I need to automate my processes. Now I need to optimize even my firmware, because devices go into countries which are so random. I haven't even tested my device there yet. All of these challenges which now start to pop up. Yeah, who knows where people now take these devices, right? It's completely unpredictable. And that is really the key part where I also then spend myself really a lot of time with customers. I really help you take it from that initial POC, that initial success in maybe a country, in a certain region, and then taking it global. So that's really what I focus on a day-to-day base.
And what are some of the areas that you think are growth areas right now in the industry?
I mean, this is obviously okay. There's two big types of growth areas, I would say, right? So one is we have a technology driver, and
Mhm.
technology driver is, especially when we talk about this whole trend of, AIoT, so bringing AI combination with IoT, right? What do we do with the data and all of that, which also now comes with new requirements of how the data should look like, what sampling sizes I want, and all of that stuff. And then the other one is more of like, kind of an application trend, which isn't that much related to the technology, but really like, what are the new areas where I can actually apply IoT? And one which we've been seeing now is, for instance, bringing really more of the cellular connected IoT to like even consumer products, medical device space. It's a big topic, and especially in combination with all these discussions right now with like satellite connectivity, for instance. T-Mobile in the US obviously is doing a good job, really bringing the satellite connectivity to day usage of your smartphone, right? And that is now
Mhm.
also happening in the IoT space, because now the moment I can basically reach anyone anywhere on land mass, at least, right? Water sometimes still a little bit out there, but now obviously I have a whole new let's say range of product. And then one of our partners, for instance, say like, hey, we're now selling a crazy amount of modules into consumer like hiking watches and trackers, because now people like realize, oh, okay, the phone and stuff, right? I want to have a little tracking device which helps me hiking, but I want to be able to call emergency service or send my position and something simple. This is
Cool.
now really where new applications start to rise, sometimes because of technology, but then also sometimes because people just realize that there is a new application to it, right? And yeah, I mean, as I said, healthcare, personal devices is a big one, but we still see a lot of growth also in these, more standardized, utility, right? Smart metering is still a big topic. Probably a little bit more in Europe than in the US, because they were a little bit back. But then also the agricultural business, right? There is more and more pressure on farmers and, everyone kind of in that food supply chain, being more efficient, producing more with essentially less resources. And this is where also a lot of innovation goes in. And a lot of these things are related to IoT.
And so you see more in the industrial, commercial, logistics than consumer, or do you think consumers on a major rise with direct connectivity?
It's percentage wise, growth wise, I would say the consumer is probably growing a little bit faster. But then, of course, the industrial space is just a lot more developed already. The consumer space, you are somewhat limited. In the end, you will see, more devices, but, most people will not run around with 5 different smartwatches and 5 different trackers.
Yeah.
Usually your dog has one, your cat has one, you have it, your kids have it. And then that's already where it starts to stop for the moment. Okay, now you maybe have like specific medical conditions. You have a new smart device monitoring your blood pressure or something like that. We saw now a very interesting use case the other day. I was discussing with someone where they basically, built into car seats a system which essentially detects if there is still a child in the car seat, and then basically, that whole problem of, maybe a parent, because it's stressful, they're forgetting their, child in the car seat, especially during the hot summer. Now you're basically getting directly notified, or even your car is now talking to that car seat and being able to like, hey, you can't even lock the door, or you can't, even walk away without the alarm of the car starting, because now it knows that there is someone still in the car seat, right? All of these, interesting new applications are growing, but of
Yeah.
course, there's also a lot of untested territory, right?
One thing that I've always appreciated with cellular is that you could deploy outside of a standard network. And so it can be hard for industrial systems or people to break into an industrial space. And so they'll go cellular. And I think the parallel here, the examples with automotive and people being able to offer complementary
Yeah.
technologies without having to work directly with Volvo or whoever is incredibly
Yeah.
nice. When are you not a fit for the problem that the customer has? I mean, you guys are a fantastic front door and you clearly have very high volume of requests and needs, but you become that trusted partner. And like, how do you go through the like consultation of the actual build out of the product and say, hey, this is where wants can help and this is where you need? Do you just do everything that, hey, you guys clearly have a robust solutions team, but like, where's the line of where you start and stop?
I mean, of course, it starts with, let's say, some of the very obvious boundaries. Today, once is not offering any kind of connectivity outside of the cellular space. I mean, we obviously now see this example with the satellite, where there's the so-called NTN, non-terrestrial network, where now kind of satellite and cellular kind of starts to merge. But outside of that, I mean, we're not looking right now into the LoRaWAN space, which is kind of the alternative LPWAN. We're not looking into private networking.
Okay.
We're not really looking into private, even 5G or like private cellular networks, right? These typical campus networks, how some people call it. So there is just some network things, just because it's connectivity, we wouldn't do all of it. We do cellular connectivity and we do that globally, right? But all these other types of connectivities we're not looking at. The other part where we obviously not prioritizing our focus on is anything where there's also let's say user type open internet services, for instance. So that also you see a lot in the automotive, the actual connected car platforms. We're not looking, actively into that because essentially, that means, there's entertainment, there's open internet access,
Yeah.
which comes with another set of regulations. And that's something which we are not focusing on because, yeah, the complexity is there, but it doesn't really stand in relation to the market size you have there, right, with the actual connected car platform. So that's just some examples, right?
Who's running the networks on the like in-car Wi-Fi solution? That's something I'm always skeptical. It's like my Atlas offers a network, and yeah, who's doing that work?
It's actually interesting that you're asking that, because one of our projects where we are for another big mobile network operator, we are actually managing an in-car Wi-Fi platform, but we're only the managing company which basically provides the technology, right? We're not the contracting partner of the automotive. That particular case, you usually see the local MNOs contracting. So that
Okay.
means in the US, it's an AT&T, it's a T-Mobile, right? Probably also Verizon being very strong, right? In Europe, you see Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone being, there. Telefonica plays its game. Probably one of
Who
the
pays
few.
for that?
It's usually the consumer, to be honest. So if you look at that, and I noticed that myself in my car. I mean, if I look at the gigabyte pricing, which I basically need to pay for this kind of in-car subscription, right? I mean, that is not in any relation to like my smartphone plan, right? I mean, what are you paying per
Yeah.
gigabyte in your car for this Wi-Fi? It's really high. So what they're doing is they're basically baking in like, okay, we know that 15% maybe of the users will buy a subscription of this Wi-Fi, right? Because of course a lot of consumers won't even test it. But then they price it so high, and they kind of also mix in the cost of the, let's say, other connectivity, because the car updates, the map updates, you still do it and you can get them without paying for that Wi-Fi subscription. So they kind of bake this all into this price per gigabyte, and now you have a really high price per gigabyte, where I'm always saying, like, some of the people which I know use it, it's like, guys, just turn on the hotspot on your phone and you're probably probably going to be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And when do you really need it in a car? Sure, on the family trip, when you have your kids sitting in the back, right? They all want to watch a nice video and something. I mean, this is where it really plays out its benefit of having your own little local network in the car. Plus, of course, the performance in the car is a lot better than on a smartphone. I mean, these guys have really optimized antennas. There is a lot more room, and these are really built for high performance. Of course, your smartphone can't compete with that. But yeah, I mean, the price you pay for that as a consumer essentially is baked in there, right?
What's the most interesting or crazy customer call you've gotten that you're able to help with?
There's a lot. I mean, to be fair, one which stuck with me was really one of these fleet managing tracking companies, where basically and I can't remember how it really got to us. So this is one of these fleet managing companies where they install the trackers in, like, vehicles, and I think it was a rental company, and they basically got called, I guess by the local car dealer or whoever was renting this car, that they somehow lost the car, and they are not sure what happened, and they basically got aware that the police is looking for that car because there was essentially an Amber Alert related to this particular car,
Oh my
right? So
gosh.
that was in the US, and then they somehow reached to our support teams, right? Because what basically happened is they couldn't get the GPS updates. So essentially, then the support teams, because then I guess someone was smart enough to look up, like, what was an Amber Alert, right? I mean, plus I'm sure the support person knew about what it is right away, and then they kind of connected us all, and then we got involved very quickly. I mean, one of my colleagues and me, and essentially we then started basically helping these guys. Okay, why is this not connecting? And it was really just somehow this car was just in a position it just couldn't get a GPS lock. So it wasn't the problem that it didn't have connectivity or any of that, right? So luckily we did our job, but that thing just couldn't get a GPS log, and it probably was parked like under some overpassage somewhere where it just couldn't get it. And somehow that provider was really missing a little bit of the history, right? Because I guess the car was driving fast and something wasn't perfect. So then we essentially tracked down the rough position through the cell tower based, right? Because we still have that option to track based on which cell towers they are. So we were able, with the local authorities, to basically tell them, hey, this cell tower, we know roughly the radius of the cell tower, which obviously was perfect for the local authorities because that was such small area that they basically found out, and they directly managed to find essentially that car. And then, I mean, the end of
Wow.
the story, I don't even know all the details exactly, but it all turned to good, right? Everything was good. And that was actually one of the things that stuck to me, because essentially we helped like figure out one of these Amber Alerts, and basically get back that. So that one probably I won't ever forget that. That was really interesting.
That is wild. It's like your Batman service offering.
Kind of for that moment, we kind of felt like that. We're like, oh, what do we do, right? So you go through your protocols, you go through your things. It's okay, shit, this device, it's working connectivity, right? And then it's like, as it sometimes is as a service provider, you're like, okay, great, like my service works, but then you're like, okay, but that doesn't help these guys right now because they have
Yeah,
another
yeah.
problem, right? It doesn't matter if my service works or not. So we're like, okay, what else can we do? Yeah, cell tower. Oh, great. Yeah, nearly forgot about that. So, and then we kind of went into that, and helped these guys. But yeah, that was really wild.
That's crazy. That is not the customer support call that I get. I can say that for certain. Yeah.
I mean, so far we only got it once, so therefore,
Luckily, yeah.
fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
thank God that's not a common occurrence.
No,
Yeah.
no, no.
So you guys closed a big round last year. What's up? What are y'all doing next?
I mean, kind of as we also said there. I mean, for us, it's still focusing on growing our international markets, right? So I'm really, and I'm trying to think back. So the 2022 round. So still kind of while COVID was going on, right? So that was our previous round before the one, and now there we kind of started our international expansion.
Okay.
I mean, pretty quickly within 23, we basically opened up the US. We opened up Japan, Singapore, right? We kind of started working our localization in Brazil, which then, really started going full speed like last year. So we focused a lot on really opening all these stores, how we call them. And now basically the latest investment is really focusing on, okay, let's we have all these stores. Let's now, grow these individual locations. Let's go in, let's establish also being, a little bit more of a well-known brand in these regions, especially being, a German company, out of Europe. We obviously had, thanks to the investment of Deutsche Telekom, always a good relation and a good, brand awareness. But then, for instance, when we started in the US 3 years ago, I mean, no one knew who we were. I
Yeah.
mean, luckily, the last 3 years, we managed to turn this around quite a bit, but there's still work to be done. I mean, there's still people out there who don't know who we are, and that's our biggest driver, right? I mean, until not everyone knows what once is, and until not everyone knows how simple connectivity can be, we're not even going to stop.
Who picked Miami? Was that you?
I wish I could claim that one for me, which was good because I actually ended up moving there myself for 2 years to kind of build the US business. No, this was actually a very strategic thing because it was back and forth between like New York and like anything on the East Coast, right? Because you want
Yeah.
to have direct flights from Germany, and then kind of Miami got in there, and then it was really just two of our key investors who kind of funded also this international expansion. They have offices and were based in Miami, so we went there, we looked at it, we're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then, also at that time, that was still like towards the, where code was still going. New York was just very expensive. Miami used to be a little bit cheaper there. I mean, of course, that meanwhile it turned around probably the
Miami put a
last.
big beacon out for do your
Yeah.
business here in Miami, and they really exploded during COVID. Yeah.
Absolutely, right. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember. I mean, it was like like it was nothing, right? I mean, we then decided for it. We got pretty quick connection to like the local teams, like even the what is it? Not governor. What's the mayor of the city, right? So we got connection to the mayor office. So they came there. There was like a joint press release, like, hey, German company telecommunications wants building our office here in Miami, right? Expanding here with local workforce, and even they loved that story. So it was really helpful. And one of the biggest side effects, which initially we probably have to admit we never thought about, it was brilliant because it also opened up the door to the Latin American market, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is the
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
part which a lot of people just always underestimate with Miami. I mean, there we obviously had then also some of our first sales guys were like locally out of Miami, obviously, kind of migrated from the Latin American countries into Miami. And, then now they took us back to, some of their contacts where they came from. And all of a sudden that, not just meant expanding into the US, but that also meant closing first deals in Latin America, which wasn't even on our bingo card back then. It's like, oh, great, cool. So
we just had our offsite in Nashville and a few folks coming international, and it really impressed with the American culture, country culture, etc. How good is your salsa?
I have to admit, terrible. I probably would have fit more into the Nashville country culture one for your all hands than to the salsa. I also, I mean, compared to Ivo, who essentially is our co-CEO. I mean, he was living already for like 12 years or more in the US. He moved from New York down to Miami as part of this.
Okay.
He actually then started also learning Spanish, right? I mean, even me, like after 2.5 years living in Miami, I mean, my Spanish is still pretty poor, which is funny because everyone else speaks Spanish there, right?
Yeah.
And every time you go into a cab, Uber, Lyft, whatever, everyone starts naturally speaking Spanish. And I was always like the guy, no, can we please go back to English? But yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, we previous company hired a lot in Latin America and then would end up traveling through Miami, I mean, quite a bit. And it's just such a different culture. And I'm in the South in Tennessee, but I think of Florida as its own country, pretty much. Like such a unique place. And then the further south you get, it's just totally flipped. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's so some of the things there are a little bit it feels interesting, right? And I mean I also been in the strangest cities in the US, right? I mean, remember back in high school, I did the typical exchange student program, going to the US. I spent a year in a high school. I mean, I was living in southeast Indiana, right? A little city which had like 650 people. So I mean, I was living like really the country style, for some time. And but then really, I mean, somehow Miami, every time I go there, and I'm still there quite frequently in that office, it's like you always see something even crazier. It's like, I don't know, people come up with the craziest ideas. The people, they're open, they're great, you can easily talk to them, everyone is approachable, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things is I really am impressed by this, like, I don't even know how to really call it, but this like non-stop hustling mentality. Everyone They're all, driving their ideas. They're all doing 5 things in parallel, right? They're all trying to come up with their own ideas. I have a day job. I'm doing this on the side, right? Be it a promoter in a club or be it something different. But they're all just hustling nonstop. And that's something which I have not seen in that way anywhere else than it is in Miami. It's really, really interesting.
Well, it's such a different culture than German culture too, which is so serious, strict, heavy engineering focused, big embedded talent base, big automotive talent base. And then Miami is just fluid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. Can't necessarily compare the German culture to it. Which is at the same time also what I think some of the challenges of international businesses are. Sure, I'm German myself. I obviously got to experience the US culture for quite some time. But then on the other hand, it's like as a German company where we have also a lot of the engineering, a lot of our key let's say support infrastructure out of Germany. We kind of see this battle constantly, right? I mean, they're not just the US, but then also, we also have business in Singapore, in Japan, all of the Asian market, trying to combine all these different cultures and getting people to this mindset of like, hey, we're not just selling a global product, we are a global company, right?
Yeah.
And that's, that's something that isn't easy, right? And then we see that really every day that people are like, hey, oh yeah, right, another thing we need to think about, and then also really these little cultural differences, right? I mean, what you say to a customer in the US won't work in the same way when you say it to a customer in Japan, right? Because in the US they're like, oh cool, great, you got my answer, and then in Japan they ask you 5 more questions about why did you give me that answer and what else do I need to understand, because that's just part of the culture there. So it's really interesting to see these different combinations on how it all works across the world.
What's the headcount split right now, like between across these different offices?
Yeah, so we have pretty much exactly 300 people worldwide, right? And then it's basically Germany is around 100 to 120 people, right?
Cool.
Which is quite a bit. We then have Riga, Latvia, which is our kind of really engineering center where most of our development, but then also operations sit. That's our number 2, which probably another 80 to 100 people or something. And then really the remaining 70, 80 people then are really split across the globe, which really, Japan is, 5 to 6, Singapore same, US with meanwhile across the US around 20, 22 people is probably then even the biggest outside of Germany and Latvia. But then we also have, 6, 8 people, I think, in Sao Paulo meanwhile, right? And then of course we have the sales managers, which are, sometimes alone in a country somewhere, right? But yeah.
And when you joined, how big was the company? You said 12, 18, something like that?
12, 15, 16, something like that.
Yeah,
back
that
then
is
we
wild.
literally fit. We had, that was then technically the second office once had. It started in like a little WeWork, right? But then when I say it was like a little office, which had at least like 2 different rooms, a little kitchen area, right? And we were like, the whole company was in one room for the majority of the day. Right now, we've been struggling even getting like a company all hands together because now you need to think about so many logistics. It's kind of crazy, right? It's
Yeah, it's wild. Well, awesome. Well, Jan, thanks so much for coming on. This was a really fun conversation. Great to catch up as always. And we'll do it again sometime. So thanks a lot, man. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Just a quick reminder, this podcast is presented by Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products.